It was the most midweek of midweek baseball games ever, and Ole Miss won the game 18-3 in a victory over Jackson State. They have Missouri State coming in this weekend. Decent result. We'll talk about it coming up next.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I am your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member in football. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it's the number one sports podcast network in America. That is because of fans like you taking in content like this, and we appreciate that very much. On today's show, we will talk about Ole Miss beating Jackson State 18-3, a game that Tristen Bissetta and Judd Utermark had 10 runs batted in out of the 18 scored. We'll talk about that. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, well, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right. This game, other than the fact that Judd Utermark hit a home run in a grand slam and Tristen Bissetta hit a couple of home runs in the same inning, there's not really a lot to talk about in this game. Now, Ole Miss did have a fielding error that happened early on in the game. That is how Jackson State essentially got their first two runs, was based off of that. But Ole Miss rebounded. They pitched the ball relatively well as you can, essentially, considering you're throwing out not just midweek arms, but midweek arms. And Ole Miss powered at the plate. They drew a bunch of walks. When you look at the lineup, Dom Decker, he was 0 for 2, but he scored 2 runs because of 2 walks. Judd Utermark was 2 for 4, had 2 home runs in the game. Will Furness was 0 for 3, but he did have a run off of a walk. Owen Pano had a run off of a walk. Colin Reuter was 2 for 2 and also had a walk. Tristen Bissetta was 2 for 2, 4 RBIs, 2 home runs. Golden was 2 for 2. Got his first career hit on a nice single that I saw. Daniel Pacello was 0 for 2 with a walk. Hayden Federico was 0 for 1 with a couple of walks. You get the idea. It didn't necessarily matter if you were swinging the sticks well because they were putting you on base. Ole Miss had 11 hits in the game. The game ended up, Ole Miss had 6 innings of at-bats, 18 outs, but Ole Miss had 11 hits. They walked 13 times, 24 base runners, and essentially 2/3 of a normal game. It was going to go the way it went. Ole Miss had 18 runs on 11 hits, had 1 error, and had 6 left on base. And Jackson State, 3 runs on 4 hits, 3 people left on base as well. The strike throwing kind of continued. Hayes, the starting pitcher, 30 strikes and 44 pitches. Hancock was more 50-50 with what went on. That was another run that they got. He walked 1 batter. The other, Hayes, walked 0, as so did Allen and Gibson. Strikeout numbers, Ole Miss only had 8, but they were able to control what was going on. This is a game that Ole Miss should have won, honestly, the way they won. This is the game that looked exactly how it was supposed to look. And we're going to talk in the second segment today a little bit more about the Missouri State game and what we want to see accomplished in that game without necessarily looking at the Missouri State players. This is a baseball game that ended up exactly like you hoped it would look, honestly. Judd Utermark right now has 32 home runs or something like that in his career. That's 16 shy of the school record. I mean, that is absolutely in reach, especially the way things are going right now. if he can avoid the strikeouts, if he can avoid the killer at bats whenever runners are on base, he is going to be an absolute weapon. I mean, he's hitting second in the lineup usually. He's stealing bases at 230, 240 pounds. He is a freakishly large, good athlete. And this season, everything seems to be coming together. As long as he can avoid chasing that slider outside, as long as he can avoid doing that, I expect him to have a Kemp Alderman type season for Ole Miss this year. Dom Decker, he's still my dude. He gets on base and he scores runs, and that's what baseball is all about. I like Tristen Bissetta, who unexpected power surge coming through. He hit a home run in this game. He went opposite field for about 400 plus feet. And then he hit a ball that got about 7 feet off the ground that cleared the right field wall. It had a 17% launch angle. Is crazy. He just basically hit a line drive out of the park. I don't care who you're playing against. That's hard to do in BP. Absolutely crazy. He just muscled up and just yanked it down the line. And that was interesting to see from him as well. I think he has as many home runs at Ole Miss so far as he had all last season at Clemson. Of course, he got injured a year ago as well. He's also playing some pretty good right field at the moment. Ole Miss, once they got through the first inning and got everything cleaned up, they didn't walk people. Like I said, they had 1 walk over the course of the game and 4 hits. So Jackson State had 5 base runners plus an error. So that was a pretty good shape. That was what you wanted to see from Ole Miss. All right. When we come back, we'll take your comments if there are any. I understand this is Jackson State. There's not going to be a lot of people watching this reaction video. But when you look at it, take this weekend, this midweek, as a step in the right direction and getting ready for Missouri State. Also, Ole Miss football, according to Zach Berry, at least, although we talked about him way back during the playoff practices, but according to Zach Berry, during the game tonight, Mike Stoops is coming along to Ole Miss, likely as an analyst. We talked about him a little bit during the playoff run, him showing up at practice and people talking about him a little bit, and we gave a little bit of background to his relationship to Pete Golding. We will talk about that in the next segment as well. If there are no questions or whatever, we just have to vamp. We'll talk about Mike Stoops getting the analyst role at Ole Miss. But coming up next, we'll take your comments. Be sure and leave where you're commenting from if you comment so I can shout that out as well. We will have a good time. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. All right. I ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person. FanDuel is giving you that chance to turn that dream into reality with the NBA sweepstakes. Now, one thing that's really interesting coming up, here's how it works. You can use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered to win a shot to the NBA Finals for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. Because if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win a championship or grab a conference title. It adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now you can not only pick cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on NBA futures and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, and inboxes overflowing. The one position you have to fill still sitting open when the pressure's on and you need a job right here, right now. Well, Indeed Sponsored Job has your back. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, yes, even location, So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? Well, this is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. It was a heavyweight showdown between number 3 South Carolina and number 7 LSU, and the Gamecocks rose to the occasion. South Carolina secured a hard-fought 79-72 victory to stay atop the SEC standings, using a balanced offensive attack to outlast the Tigers. Tessa Johnson led the way with 21 points, while Raven Johnson added 19. Medina Okot dominated the paint with a double-double, finishing with 12 points and 17 rebounds, while Joyce Edwards chipped in 10 points to round out the scoring. With the statement win, the Gamecocks now turn their attention to a road matchup at number 23 Alabama on Thursday. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, we're going to get into the comments a little bit. If there are any there, I realize it's Jackson State midweek, and a lot of people may not be watching this video. Ole Miss is an 18-3 victor, run ruling the Jackson State Tigers tonight and going to 5-0. We are going to take your comments. We're also going to talk about Mike Stoops if there's time for the next 10 minutes or so. Couple of questions on here. He's glad for some underused players to get some reps. Yeah, at the end of the game, there was a whole bunch of names that got into the ball game that you haven't seen. And they came through. There was a lot of, hey, his first hit as an Ole Miss Rebel was this game. That was pretty cool. B-Hub says 5-0, can't ask for better than that, but we have a lot of room for improvement. He is from Hernando, Mississippi. He also asked, why is the defense selling so much? Defense is doing what it did a year ago. I think it is a little bit better, but they need to get some confidence is what I'm saying. We need a game with a 0 in the E column pretty freaking bad. So we'll see what happens. He says, any chance Utermark moves to shortstop, Randall to second, Decker to third? I think Decker is where he's going to be. He's a second baseman. I think Utermark is the third baseman. I don't know if there's anything they can do if we're going to be completely honest about it. I don't know if there's a path forward unless there's some unknown player that we haven't seen play yet. I think this might be the lineup that you're going to see. Now, the errors that are happening, they're throwing errors. They're weird throwing errors. So if they just clean that up a little bit and make the routine plays, they're going to be fine. They hit the ball a ton. They pitch the ball extremely well. It's kind of like being really good at offense and really good at defense and really bad at special teams is what we're looking at right now. And Ole Miss is kind of going through that. All right, before I get out of here, Zach Berry from On3 put out a post that Mike Stoops was going to end up at Ole Miss football as an analyst. We talked about that during the playoff run. I think it was in December. He had been around the program, and it kind of was a poorly kept secret that he was likely to hang around. Mark Stoops was a linebacker coach at Kentucky under his brother Mark. For the last several years, he's coached with Bob Stoops. He was the head coach of Arizona. But in between, he was in the Saban coaching rehabilitation program as well. And that is where he ran across Pete Golding. That is where the knowledge of that defense and what was going on happened. They obviously liked each other. They reunited. That is where the connection is between Pete Golding and Mike Stoops. Mike Stoops is a linebacker coach. He's going to help the young guy that is there now because analysts can coach on the field now. They just can't go out on the road recruiting. So the linebackers are going to be in good shape. It's kind of like when Ole Miss had Zach Arnett back a couple of years ago. The linebackers were going to be just fine no matter what was going on because he had his hands on them. And this Ole Miss defense is going to be really similar because they'll get a Mike Stoops to go with a Randall Joyner and all of those in there. And the recruiting wise, you have the recruiting weapons going out into the field. So that is what is going on. I am curious to see where it ends up, but that is what happened. Mike Stoops coming on board as an analyst. You saw Delta State's head coach is going to come on as an assistant to the head coach, basically another type analyst type role. And the tight end coach has been named as well. Although he looks like Zach Blackerby to me. So it's pretty funny to look at. Anyway, I appreciate y'all coming in. Again, the Jackson State game that you win 18-3 is not going to have the biggest numbers in the world. I understand that, but I appreciate y'all stepping in. We'll be doing live shows after the Missouri State game, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And after the game on Tuesday night, we'll be live again. And it's weird. When we get through that Tuesday night game, it's 9 games through the season. It's like a 60-game regular season that you're about 20% through at that point. That's absolutely nuts to think about. So thanks again for tuning in today to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk about this baseball team and all of that all week. So make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you can get all of the latest episodes. We're on all of the social channels as well. So check that out. Never miss an episode. If you do that, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to LockedOnOleMiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you check out a second listen with Locked On College Football. Hotty toddy, everybody. Let's get ready for a weekend series against the Missouri State Bears. Should be interesting. Take care, everybody.